The wind was cold, and the waves rose slowly, as if preparing to swallow something great. On the deck of the Titanic, people moved with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. The ship glided in a straight line across an ocean whose end could not be seen, while in the distant horizon the ice gleamed, like a sword raised by an unseen hand, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The collision came without warning. A long, metallic scream tore the night in half. The ship trembled, as if gasping in its first breath of pain. A deep slumber. Passengers froze in place, caught between silent disbelief and the slow crawl of fear spreading like smoke through the grand halls. Plates shattered, red wine spilled like blood on white marble, and the music stopped abruptly, as if it understood fate before anyone else. Eyes met in silence, a silence known only to those who suddenly realize that survival is no longer among the options. Above deck, chaos erupted, screams, orders, cries, all blending with the groaning of iron breaking from within. The sea crept in through every crack, cold and merciless, and the lights flickered before dying one by one, as though the ship were being slowly pulled into a world from which there would be no return. That night, drowning was not the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of a story that would forever remain in the memory of the sea, a tale of pride that defied the ice, only to become a legend. And even now the echo of steel surrendering to water still lingers beneath the frozen waves. On a cold morning, the Iron Giant drifted from the harbor like a creature from another age. Bells rang, and crowds waved from the docks, unaware that they were saying their final goodbye. The Titanic shimmered under a gray sun, the very embodiment of human pride, a floating city that carried the dreams of continents upon her decks. At the top, the wealthy walked with an air of certainty that bordered on vanity. Fine suits, elegant hats, laughter rising above the sound of the sea. Below, in the lower decks, workers and immigrants sat shoulder to shoulder, dreaming of a new life beyond the horizon. They all shared the same fate, though none of them knew it yet, for the ocean does not recognize class or fortune. The captain stood in the wheelhouse, his gaze steady, his voice calm. "We will set a record for speed," he said with absolute confidence. His words carried the weight of an age intoxicated by progress, an age that believed steel could outwit destiny. In the grand dining hall, music soared, and lights reflected on crystal and glass like small ocean stars. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, and conversations danced with laughter and talk of the future. No one spoke of the sea, as if they had forgotten that this endless expanse has never forgiven those who underestimate it. In the lower decks, children ran through narrow corridors, the smell of coal and steam filling the air. Simple dreams were whispered, a home, a steady job, a new beginning. No one knew that those same dreams would soon dissolve in water colder than silence itself. In those first hours of the voyage, the Titanic sailed like a complete city, confidently venturing into the unknown. From above came the laughter of the elite, from below, the songs of the humble. And the sea embraced them all with the patience of a god waiting for the moment when it would close its mouth upon its great secret. As the ship crossed into open waters, night fell softly, as though the heavens themselves blessed the adventure. Lights twinkled along the decks like man-made stars that dared to rival the sky. Inside the bridge, the officers chatted lightly about numbers and records. No fear, no caution, only the quiet certainty that iron was stronger than fate. That night, the story that would change the world began. A journey born of euphoria and ending in disbelief. The first chapter of a legend that the sea would write not in ink, but in frozen water. A witness to the truth that the closer man comes to perfection, and perfection belongs only to God, the nearer he draws to his own destruction. That night, the ocean looked like a mirror of silver. No waves, no sound. Only the calm shimmered beneath the moonlight, as if nature itself had chosen silence to honor something about to happen. The Titanic moved forward, steady and proud, her lights stretching across the surface like golden threads weaving a dream too beautiful to last. In the upper salons, violins played softly. The Titanic moved forward, steady and proud, her lights stretching across the surface like golden threads weaving a dream too beautiful to last. In the upper salons, violins played softly. Laughter mingled with the rustle of silk and crystal, while men in tailored suits spoke confidently of the future. That night, the ocean looked like a mirror of silver. No waves, no sound. Only the calm shimmered beneath the moonlight, as if nature itself had chosen silence to honor something about to happen. The Titanic moved forward, steady and proud, her lights stretching across the surface like golden threads weaving a dream too beautiful to last. In the upper salons, violins played softly. Laughter mingled with the rustle of silk and crystal, while men in tailored suits spoke confidently of the future, of New York waiting with open arms, of business, of glory. No one noticed the cold that had begun to creep through the windows, a whisper from the unseen north. Down below, among the workers and migrants, the warmth was different, the warmth of crowded rooms and shared stories. Folk songs were hummed quietly, and children slept on wooden benches, dreaming of places they'd never seen. None of them knew that their dreams were sailing straight toward the ice. In the wheelhouse, the captain watched the compass with calm authority. A faint red glow from the instruments flickered across his face. A flash of warning no one yet understood. An officer approached with a message in hand, a telegram reporting icebergs ahead. The captain glanced at it, set it down, and continued speaking about the course. Danger was just another line on a routine report. Above, the stars were too clear, so many, so close, as if watching with divine curiosity. The air grew sharper, the glass on the railings started to frost. Some passengers on deck stopped to take pictures, others pulled their coats tighter. But no one truly wondered about the meaning of that cold breath coming from the heart of the ocean. At that late hour, the Titanic had never looked more magnificent. Her lights gleamed, her music soared, and the sea was perfectly still, like a heart waiting for its next beat. Everything appeared flawless, and yet, deep below, the water moved with slow intention, as if destiny itself were stirring awake. In the engine room, the workers laughed and shouted over the thunder of machinery. Sparks danced from the coal fires, and the steady tremor of the engines reassured them. The ship was alive, strong, unstoppable. None of them heard the heavy silence growing above, the kind that always comes before the fall. The night drifted by in quiet beauty. Couples on deck gazed at the moon, the cold wind touching their faces like a poem. Violins whispered a slow melody, and for a moment, it felt as though the Titanic was not a ship at all, but a dream suspended between heaven and sea. Then, far in the distance, something glimmered, a pale blue light, silent and still, like a blade raised by an unseen hand. The iceberg waited. The ocean stopped breathing, the wind fell silent, and the world itself seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the collision that would awaken the dream into nightmare, a scream that would echo through a century of memory. The clock neared midnight. The air was sharper now, and even the officers noticed the stillness that had become too perfect to trust. Then it came, a sound unlike any other, a long, metallic cry that split the night in two. The Titanic shuddered, not violently, not softly, but differently. A faint groan rose from deep inside her hull, the sound of metal realizing its own fragility. In the bridge, the officer leaned over the glass, his breath fogging the window. Something white, enormous, ghostly, was gliding toward them with unnatural speed. He shouted for the helm. "Hard to starboard!" Wheels spun, engines roared, commands overlapped in the dark like prayers muttered too late. But the distance was shorter than fear. The ocean had already made its move. The iceberg struck with a sound that no human ear had heard before, a deep, tearing moan, as if the sea itself was ripping through the heart of metal. The Titanic trembled. A vibration ran through every beam, every breath, every soul aboard. It wasn't a crash. It was a wound being opened. Glass shattered in the grand dining hall. passengers woke to a strange tilt under their beds. Dishes fell, crystal cracked, and a hush spread like a shadow through the golden corridors. "Did we hit something?" someone whispered. A distant voice answered, not with words, but with a scream echoing through the lower decks. Then came running footsteps, shouts, and the sound of rushing water, a sound that grew louder with every heartbeat. In the engine room, men stared in disbelief as icy water forced its way through the seams. It came hissing and gurgling, unstoppable, alive, a living creature with no mercy. They tried to close the valves, to seal the doors, but the sea was faster. In the engine room, men stared in disbelief as icy water forced its way through the seams. It came hissing and gurgling, unstoppable, alive, a living creature with no mercy. They tried to close the valves, to seal the doors, but the sea was faster. The cold bit into their skin like teeth. On the decks above, the music stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than the blow itself. For a moment, everyone waited, as if expecting the captain to appear and laugh it off. But no laughter came. The ship began to lean, just slightly, enough for glasses to slide, enough for fear to take shape. Officers shouted orders, doors slammed shut. The smell of wet iron filled the air. Some passengers still smiled nervously, believing the unsinkable ship could never truly be in danger. But below, the truth was already rising, literally. The ocean was climbing deck by deck, a patient invader. Every minute passed like an hour. Every sound of water was another heartbeat lost. In the luxurious salons, women clutched their pearls as chandeliers swayed overhead. In the lower decks, people began to pray. Children cried and men pounded on doors already sealed. From the bridge came the quiet, heavy voice of the captain. "Send the distress signal." In that moment, hope became measured. In flares, in lifeboats, in minutes. The Titanic was no longer a triumph of mankind. She had become a battlefield between pride and the sea. Outside, the night was clear and cruel. The stars shone brighter than ever, their reflections trembling in the black water. And beneath them, the ship groaned, a wounded giant realizing that even steel can break. The first lifeboat was lowered. People hesitated, confused. It felt absurd to abandon a masterpiece for a wooden shell. But the water did not wait for Rizzo. It crept into the halls, it swallowed the laughter, and it began to drag the dream down, inch by inch, breath by breath. The ocean had awakened, and it would not sleep again until the last light was gone. The deck was no longer a place of laughter. It had become a stage of disbelief. Men in uniforms ran between lifeboats, shouting over the rising wind, their voices cracking beneath the weight of panic. The ship was tilting now, unmistakably. You could feel it in your legs, see it in the way people leaned against the railings, in the way the stars seemed to slide down the sky. From the grand staircase to the freezing deck, fear had many faces, some silent, some praying, some stubbornly smiling as if to defy fate itself. The band gathered their instruments again. No orders were given. They simply knew. Music was all they had left to offer. A violin trembled against the wind, its notes carrying over the chaos like a whisper from another world. "Nearer, my God, to thee." The melody floated through the air, fragile, holy, impossible. Even the sea seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Mothers held their children close. Men who once spoke of honor now fought for a place in lifeboats. Others stepped back, letting the women and children go first. Even the sea seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Mothers held their children close. Men who once spoke of honor now fought for a place in lifeboats. Others stepped back, letting the women and children go first, their faces calm in the glow of lanterns and despair. The lifeboats lowered, creaking against the ropes, as the ship's bow sank deeper into the Atlantic's black mouth. Cries echoed, names called out and swallowed by the cold. Some passengers refused to believe it. They stood at the rails, watching as if this were only another delay, as if a rescue ship might appear any moment. But the horizon was empty. Only stars, beautiful, indifferent stars. The captain walked the deck in silence, his coat frozen stiff, his eyes lost in the reflection of his dying ship. He gave one last order: every man to his duty. And duty, on this night, meant courage. It meant staying while others fled. It meant music and faith, and the quiet dignity of those who knew they would not see dawn. The engines were silent now, only the sound of water, rising, crashing, devouring. One lifeboat after another vanished into the distance, their small lanterns flickering like fallen stars. The Titanic was half gone, its lights dimming, its soul trembling between sky and sea. In the last moments, the band kept playing, their fingers stiff, their breath visible in the frozen air. And for a fleeting instant, it didn't feel like tragedy. It felt like grace. Because even as the sea claimed her, humanity, fragile, foolish, magnificent, refused to go quietly. They played until the deck slipped from under them. They played until the music turned into silence. And when the final note died, the night was left to the sound of waves and the cold, endless whisper of the Atlantic. The ocean had become a mirror of death, still, black, and endless. Above it, the Titanic, the pride of mankind, was no longer a ship but a wounded giant, groaning beneath the crushing weight of fate. People clung to railings, their hands frozen to the metal, their breaths sharp and shallow. The tilt grew steeper. Deck chairs slid like ghosts across the floor, crashing into the dark. Then came the sound, that deep, haunting roar as the heart of the ship finally broke. Steel screamed like thunder underwater, echoing across the Atlantic night. In that moment, time stopped. The bow disappeared into the black. The stern rose into the sky, towering, defiant, a monument to man's arrogance and his fragility. Some still prayed, some simply stared into the stars, others whispered names, not wanting to die unheard. And then, silence broke again. The ship cracked in half, an explosion of light, sound, and horror as the great vessel surrendered to the sea. Bodies and debris were thrown into the freezing abyss. The ocean swallowed it all, the laughter, the dreams, the music. When it was over, only darkness remained. The sea, once calm, was now filled with cries, thousands of voices fading into the night. "Help! Over here!" But no one came. The lifeboats drifted in silence, helpless, watching the unthinkable. The water was merciless. Within minutes, the cold stole every breath, every heartbeat. And yet, even here, among the dying, there was a strange beauty. Hands clasped together in faith, eyes turned toward the stars, as if searching for home. The Titanic was gone, but her story had only just begun. Above the Black Sea, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. It touched the frozen waves, and for a brief moment, the Atlantic shimmered with gold. From that light came hope. The survivors, trembling, silent, watching as rescue finally arrived. They had lived through history, through arrogance and tragedy. Through the night, the world learned that not even giants are unsinkable. And so the Titanic sleeps still 2 miles beneath the waves, a cathedral of memories, a graveyard of dreams. Her story endures, not because of how she sank, but because of how humanity rose, in music, in courage, and in love that even the ocean could not drown.